Hey guys, so I wanted to give you a quick breakdown on the thumbnail shot that I used for the last video. Unfortunately, I can't include the project files because it includes paid models and I'm not about, ripping off other artists, but everything can be done here and replicated with no add-ons or anything. So let's start with the materials here. I went through and mapped out a bunch of different materials as the model did not come with maps. Everything was UV'd, however, the material mapping was a little bit messed up, so I just went through and made my own. I just went through and made like vertex selections for everything that I wanted to be whatever. For all of the like dials, knobs, things like that, I initially had them all as metal, and I did this all super realistic, and I didn't feel it. I didn't like it very much, so I went through and I just kind of went with this like very stylized metal. There's no like breakup and roughness map or anything like that. It's just straight up stylized metal. These are the settings for the metal. From there, I did the lens, and the lens itself is just a default like blender glass, like the cheaty way, you turn your transmission all the way up, your roughness all the way down. I didn't want a bunch of refraction in this because I didn't want it to be super distracting when it was like hyper realistic, but then afterwards I also didn't want it to be super distracting because the rest of this was going to be a kind of glass material. So for the main material, we have pretty simple setup. So we have our principled BSDF here, which is a Musgrave texture plugged into our mapping, and we have it set to UV. And then I just added a bunch of colors on my color ramp and moved them around till I got like spacing that I wanted, that I thought was cool, played with my scale values and my detail. I turned my subsurf up just a tiny little bit because the model itself is not very big. Yeah, nothing about this is like set to like a real world value. Everything's like pretty small. So the higher I cranked my subsurf, like the weirder it looked. I didn't really like it. Most of this stuff here is default. From there, I mixed it with my glass shader, and these are the colors that I used for this and the settings for the roughness, value, and IOR. And then I used a mix shader with a wave texture that had been altered by the Musgrave texture. These are the settings for those. And this is just so that I can like fade the fall off between these things like easily, and I can control that a little bit better. And then, yeah, that gives us our main material here. Now, our lighting setup here is pretty simple. I have an HDRI plugged in, and I have it set to 0.1 just so that I can get some more interesting reflections. And then we started off with a side light over here a bit high up because I wanted this to be kind of casting like down onto the floor and into our like grass here, which, by the way, our grass is just two very simple particle systems that just have like altered length, and they have the roughness turned up. There's nothing special about those. But anyways, this side light, I wanted it to be casting light down a little bit so that we get kind of shadow on the ground, but I also found that it got these cool reflections along the top here, and I really liked how those looked. From there, I added in our background light. Again, since our source light is coming from our right side higher up, I wanted the background to reflect that as well. So I placed this light here, and it's creating this like darker shadow over here where we have the like lens end of the camera. Just keeps everything a little bit more consistent, helps it fall within like a little bit more of a real space. From there, I started adding in lights like this one and this one for reflections. Let's go one at a time. This first light casts more reflection along the top here. It also blows out some of this. Typically, I don't like blowing out glass material until we have it all like, perfectly white. I think that like tends to kind of be too harsh and it's not really pleasurable to look at, but with this color palette, I actually liked it a lot, so I kept it. You can also see that we get some more reflections in here on like this I don't know the word for this, like scope of the lens, which is, again, super helpful. If you have something that is just like a glass material, similar to like what you would see on like a Game Boy from the 90s or something, where they had those like plasticky materials you could see through, reflections are key in making those look good in 3D art. Otherwise, it just looks like kind of gross and not real. So yeah, then we added this light out here, and I don't remember off the top of my head what this light did. Oh, this was the underside reflections and just kind of lighting up this area down here a little bit more. I did this indirectly because this light itself is kind of high, kind of powerful for the scene setting. Again, remember, all these are very tiny. So 900 is pretty powerful for our scene, and I didn't want it to be overexposed, but I wanted more reflection down here because, again, reflection is everything. And then we have one more light up at the very top. And this light, it casts light on something that we can't quite see, which is this object up here. it creates this reflection here. And initially my framing was something more like this, but I ended up not going with that. I went with something a little bit more in. I think we were something like that. I'll just remember not to save. From there we have our background area, and nothing special about the material here. You turn the roughness up a little bit from default because otherwise you get kind of almost like a reflection of the light, and you don't really want that. You want a diffusion of the light. So just crank your roughness up one. I think this is literally just 0.1 above what the default is. And then yeah, I went for a super pastel color because it matches what's going on the camera. And I wanted to break up the background just a little bit, so I threw some spheres in here, and this is literally just a default material. It's just, I clicked new material, and there it is. The material for the floor is also the material for the grass. I also have this ring here. This is just a circle that I subdivided. It also has like a pastel pink color. Initially, again, when my camera was back here, I wanted some breakup on the floor. And I do think that this is like a nice shot. And I think that even like the framing on this is a little bit nicer. And if I were to just post this as a still somewhere, I'd probably use something more like this. But as a thumbnail, the other one worked a little bit better. It was a little bit more readable, I think. Now, while I'm calling all of this like basic stuff, I actually really struggled with this scene. And I think that's kind of like important to say, because I don't want to pretend that like I just got up and made this in 45 minutes and it was done. So in total, I probably spent about like 4 hours trying to get colors and lighting right on this. So please don't feel like if I'm calling something simple, I'm saying it's simple as like when you're looking at it as the end product. When I was making it, I was very frustrated and I was trying super hard. And eventually I did come to something I liked, but it was just a constant repetition of trying things. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for supporting me here on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. And I will be back later this week with some more cool things that I've lined up. I'm not sure if it'll be before the weekend is up or if it'll be on Monday, but I do have some things that I want to post here. Again, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys real soon.